It's time for the moment you've been waiting for.
Cricket Mug.
Yo!
Juicy, tangy, moist, gourmet level.
Salt. That's all I can taste is salt.
That's robust.
Safe to swallow. Juicy, tangy, moist.
Cheeseburger.
Getting all over my face. Gourmet level burger. Tangy zip, swirl, moist. But in addition to that as well, this morning, I'd like to have a little bit of a discussion and debate about a couple of United States chain restaurants. I know, but it's a podcast after all, and I like to discuss various topics. Over the last day, I've seen tons of people on Twitter arguing, and I would like to chime in. All right, I would like to chime in on this great debate. All right, so it's going to be an interesting podcast to say the least. Okay, now it's time for us to get to something serious, a very serious debate. All right, this is the biggest debate on Twitter, and I'm going to join in on it. Ladies and gentlemen, 2 days ago, someone by the name of Alex Cohen posted up the following on Twitter. I don't understand how the following restaurants are still in business: Chili's, Applebee's, Olive Garden, and Red Lobster. The post went viral, and you have now people all over Twitter arguing with each other about these restaurants, but in particular, there's actually a defense force coming out in droves for, in particular, Red Lobster and Olive Garden. Okay? Wait till you hear some of these posts, and I'd like to definitely give you my take on this. Okay? Excuse me. First of all, if you are not in the United States, you may not know what any of these restaurants are. These are chained restaurants that very much serve Americanized food. However, they disguise it under the guise of different gimmicks. Okay? Chili's and Applebee's, you could argue, are kind of like diner style food, meaning they don't really specialize in anything, but they'll do a little bit of everything. Okay? You know, steak, chicken, sandwiches, salads, bar style, pub style foods. Okay? But if you actually were to ask, gee, I wonder, what is the specialty food of these places? I don't know if anyone could even answer, because they're kind of like a jack of all trades, master of none, and their menus change frequently over the years. I think with Chili's, the one thing that everyone talks about is their baby back ribs. But even then, I've had ribs that are insanely good at other places, and I go to Chili's like, this is not good. So even the stuff they're kind of known for, they're not necessarily good at, okay? Olive Garden is the Americanized Italian restaurant. And what I mean by that is, if you go to an authentic Italian restaurant, you could probably sit down and get a staple dishes. You know, a staple pasta dish, homemade pizza, you know, a fresh soup of Italian style, you know, that kind of stuff. If you go to Olive Garden, what you will get is the most Americanized, watered down version of said dishes that is not authentic at all. Okay? But there's gimmicks. So for example, I'll get a pasta dish, but you get unlimited breadsticks with the pasta dish. You get a free soup or something with the pasta dish. Okay? The funny part is, these are all franchised out restaurants, meaning you can likely find an Olive Garden in a place where you would never find an actual real Italian restaurant. So what's happened is, over the course of the last 20 to 30 years in America, these restaurants have spread out over the country and found themselves in little towns, rural areas, in particular the Midwest United States, where you wouldn't necessarily see the authentic food that they're trying to replicate, so you don't know the difference between the Americanized franchise version and the authentic original dish. You see what I'm saying? If you've never had real Italian food before, and you go to Olive Garden, you might love Olive Garden. All right, let's talk about Red Lobster, because out of all those restaurants, this is the one that stands out the absolute most. Okay? Red Lobster, for a lot of people in the United States, is actually considered high-end gourmet dining. Some of us who just heard me say that are probably scoffing, laughing, snickering, and saying, are you fucking serious? Because Red Lobster is a seafood restaurant that specializes in seasonal food for cheap. So, for example, they will have a shrimp fest where you can go and you can get shrimp scampi, fried shrimp, boiled shrimp, skewered shrimp, and you can get a whole plate of 4 or 5 kinds of shrimp for like $25, which is actually inexpensive compared to a place where you'd be getting like high-end fresh shrimp and you're trying to get that much food. You'd probably be spending $30 to $40, so it's actually considered cheaper. Okay? They have a lobster fest where they have all kinds of different lobster dishes. Lobster bisque, lobster tail, with butter, sometimes a stuffed lobster tail. The lobster fuck me. Different dishes with lobster. And again, you'll get it for like $20 to $30, while as opposed to a high-end restaurant, it'll be much more expensive. Okay? Much like Olive Garden, their dishes are very Americanized, meaning if you go to an authentic seafood restaurant at a coastal city, like I live in Seattle or outside of Seattle, if I go down to the waterfront at Pike Place Market, there's a ton of authentic seafood restaurants where I will get the freshest food available, but it's like $50 a plate. Or you go to Red Lobster, get their Americanized equivalent of that, which is way less quality, for like $20. Okay? Also, they have a gimmick, unlimited cheesy biscuits. So think about this. You go to Olive Garden, unlimited breadsticks. You go to Red Lobster, unlimited cheesy biscuits. They have these gimmicks to hook people, okay? So, if what I'm saying is true, if Chili's, Applebee's, Olive Garden, and Red Lobster, okay, are not authentic, then why are they popular? Why are they still successful in the United States, all right? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read a few tweets of people responding to this debate, and I'm going to give you my take on it, okay? This one is from a woman named Rashina. She says, I initially wrote up a whole class analysis on why takes like this are so bad, about the original take of I don't understand why they're still in business. But independent of your disdain for rural and or working class people, let's not pretend that Red Lobster don't be hitting. Okay. So in her opinion, if you don't like those restaurants, you're actually having disdain for rural and working class people in the United States. Let's continue. From Katie. We used to drive over an hour to go to a Red Lobster once a year as a kid. I was convinced that this was the height of luxury. From someone named JS. We grew up poor, and to little me, Red Lobster was the height of fine dining. We went for birthdays when my parents could afford it. I recently signed a book deal, and I only wanted Red Lobster in celebration. I mean, it's not the best, but memories of surviving and being with family tastes like Cheddar Bay biscuits to me. Nostalgia, right? Someone named Gnome. Red Lobster is the only sit-down seafood option for a huge chunk of places that I've lived at or visited. Chili's and Applebee's are mediocre, but they're reliable. They're often the only place open later in suburbia, and they might be the only nicer place to go to when you live in a more rural area. Okay? So, here's the fun part about this is I can understand both sides of the equation, all right? I understand that there's absolutely better, more authentic restaurants out there. And in truth, if you choose to actively go to a chain restaurant, like let's say, for example, you live in the same town where there's an authentic Italian restaurant, but you choose to go to Olive Garden, okay? You're literally killing authentic business. You are. And it's funny because I live in that exact situation, okay? Right now, where I live, there is an Olive Garden at the local mall. That Olive Garden has a line out the door of people waiting every single weekend. I'm not exaggerating. You have to wait to get into Olive Garden where I live. But there's a couple more authentic, I wouldn't say fully authentic, but there are some more authentic Italian restaurants in my area. They're much more lower scale. You don't have to do reservations to eat there, and they're not as popular. But the food's more authentic. Now, if half the people who ignorantly ate at Olive Garden stepped 1 foot out of the fucking line and actually tried the authentic food, I would guarantee you they would never go back to Olive Garden. Their mind, it would be like, you ever see the meme of the guy going, I think it's from the him and Eric Awesome show. It's that different. It really is. It's that different of an experience to eat the authentic versus the cheap American knockoff. But these people have only experienced the knockoff, so to them, that's the good food. It's comfort food to them because that's something they've had their whole life. You know what I'm saying? Red Lobster is terrible. I can outright tell you this. I grew up in a town that had a Red Lobster in it, but also had authentic restaurants, seafood restaurants in it. I rarely went to any of them when I was growing up. Almost never did we eat seafood. The once or twice that we went to a seafood restaurant, we did not go to Red Lobster. We went somewhere else. So it was really weird to me when I had friends who talk about going to Red Lobster. And, oh man, it's so good. And I was like, I've never been there. Like, you've never been to Red Lobster? Wow, you're really missing out. And then years later as an adult, I went to Red Lobster. It sucked. It did. The shrimp, shrimp fest. It's all frozen shrimp. Nothing fresh at all. It's flavorless. So what do they do to add flavor? They douse it in butter, garlic. They basically throw on sauces and over season to try to make their really bad quality food have flavor. Okay? And to me, obviously, having the authentic food, I know the difference. But here's what you got to understand with America, all right? Here you really got to understand, because I can see it from other perspectives, thank God. I grew up on the East Coast. The East Coast is one of the coastal areas of the country that was lucky enough to have immigration, all right? I grew up in a part of Connecticut where a heavy Italian population, in addition to huge amounts of local seafood, okay? Not everyone is actually lucky in that regard, okay? Not everyone is lucky at all in that regard to have that. Not everyone has the authentic or even has an option to have something authentic, okay? So I had the real stuff, and I can understand by comparison why the chain stuff is bad. In fact, the authentic stuff existed before the chains ever hit Connecticut. You understand what I'm saying? Let's directly compare that to Seattle area here. All right? There's almost no Italian population here. I'm probably the most Italian thing in the state. And I'm not fully Italian. Seriously. There's almost no Italians out here. Okay? Authentic Italian food, insanely rare out here. All right? I guarantee you, Olive Garden was probably here before anything even close to being authentic. So to the people out here, Olive Garden is the authentic. You know what I'm saying? Now, again, I'm not saying that there aren't a few exceptions, but it's very different than where I came back home in Connecticut. There was Italian restaurants out the ass that were all authentic. You see? So here's the way I see it. If you live on one of these coasts of the country, all right, you're lucky. You've been graced with cultural diversity. If you live in this area of the country where I live right now, you've probably eaten some of the best Asian food ever. Indian, Mediterranean, Vietnamese, Chinese, Japanese, I could go on and on. Filipino, right? Because I live here, I could get the authentic. But what if there was none of that, but there was a P.F. Chang's down the street? I might eat at P.F. Chang's and say, that's the most authentic, it's so good. And you wouldn't know the difference. You wouldn't realize that's Americanized Asian food. You see what I'm saying? So, for a lot of people who live in this country, okay, essentially what I'm seeing is, it's a time when, if you're on the coasts, life is very different than the Midwest. It just is. In the Midwest, none of those immigration areas actually hit there. You know what I'm saying? There's no Italian focal points in the Midwest. There's no Asian focal points in the Midwest. There's no seafood. Why would you have seafood in the Midwest? You're landlocked. Where's the sea? Right? Where are you going to get the food from? You get it? See what I'm saying? So in the Midwest, the only opportunity you have to even eat those cuisines would be these chain franchises. All right? And yes, in the Midwest, those chain franchises are considered more expensive, pricey, fine dining options to the cheaper, more inexpensive Americana-style fare. Diner food, maybe barbecue stuff. Outside of that stuff, they don't have anything. So this is the weird, gourmet, authentic to them. They haven't had the real stuff. And yes, this is more pricey to them, even though it really isn't. Okay? So, what I see is basically two completely different parts of America. And you know what? Not that I'm a political guy, but this is where you can start to see the disconnect in our country with politics as well. Why is it that it seems like the Midwest or the central part of our country, right? If you just go like what do they call that? The belt? I forget what they call it. There's a belt in the middle of the country. That part of the country seems to be of a completely different mindset than the coasts. Why? Because the coasts get everything. The coasts have the immigration, the culture, the money, the income. All the coasts get all that shit. What did the Midwest get? Farms, right? This is what they were here. You're the heartland of America. Sit out there and fucking farm, right? They didn't get any of the stuff that the other coasts got. They even started a new term. It's called coastal elites, where people on the coast of the U.S. almost feel like they're better than everyone else, right? They feel like because they have better opportunities at cultural diversity, more income, right? Like, take a look at the income of the people who live on the coast versus the people who live in that central area of the U.S. It's crazy different. It is. It's dramatically different. And so when you have a place like Twitter, all right, and on Twitter, you have this melting pot. Everyone on Twitter is from everywhere. You have one person who tweets is like, oh, I don't understand how anyone could ever go to any of these restaurants. Well, it's like, well, did you have opportunity to eat better because you maybe are one of these coastal elites who's so hoity-toity, right? Oh, you're lucky. You had the good food where you came from. We didn't have that. We didn't have a lot of money. You eat at home or you go to like a diner. There's nothing else out there. We were lucky when we were able to save up enough and for a birthday go to Red Lobster and splurge and eat shrimp or lobster, which we never eat because there's nowhere else to eat it. It's basically it's a very ignorant mindset to say, oh, these places shouldn't exist or why would you eat there, right? But I will be honest with you. It blows my mind when I'm living here at a place where you can get the authentic, but people choose the generic. That does blow my mind. And I almost feel like there's an ignorance because everyone knows Olive Garden. Not everyone might know Paolo's Italian Restaurant because it's a local, authentic Italian restaurant. So, I'm in the area, I'm going to eat. What am I going to eat? Olive Garden because I know what it is. Those franchises get that advantage over the local businesses, right? In a lot of ways, those franchises may actually be cheaper too. You may have a cheaper price or, I spent $25 on my dinner, but I got unlimited breadsticks, a soup for free with my entree, as opposed to if I go to the Italian restaurant, it's $25 just for the entree, and if I want those extra things, it's extra money. You see? So, you see what I'm saying? I can kind of see from both sides of the argument, and I can understand why those franchises were or are popular. But at the same time, I don't think someone saying I don't like those restaurants is someone who's like out to attack the Midwest or rural America or working class America. I think what they're saying is you just got to realize they really are shit restaurants. I mean, honestly, you go to Olive Garden. Let me give you some perspective here. All right, when Kat moved here, I took her to one of the more authentic Italian restaurants. We sat down and we had a small pizza, cheese pizza, and I think she got some kind of a pasta dish and I got some kind of a chicken dish. All right, we ate. We're like, wow, the flavors, the ingredients, the seasoning, that's amazing. And then on a whim, one time we went to Olive Garden. We had to wait to get in. All right, we get in, we sit down to eat. And it's the most bland, disgusting, fatty, cheesy, buttery nonsense. It's gross. Oh, yes, I'm sure in Italy they really eat pasta slathered in garlic butter, right? That's what they eat over there. You know? The best thing we ate was the soup. The soup was all right. Everything else we ate was disgusting. We were like, we walked out of there with a stomach ache. Like, this is nasty. And that's what we like, this is not authentic. You know what I mean? Same thing with Red Lobster. If you go to an authentic seafood restaurant, you're going to see these cool, fresh preparations and ways that they present the fresh ingredients to you straight from the sea. Absolutely, yes. Those are going to be way more expensive than going to Red Lobster. But, I mean, that's definitely different. You know what I'm saying? But is it arrogant to say no one should like those restaurants? Yes, it is. Because these people, I hate to say it, these coastal elites, they just don't have a lot of the time the ability to see from another person's perspective. All they see is from my very, very privileged perspective of who I am and what I've experienced in my life.
Ironic.
That's why they're not able to look at another person who's lived a different life and see from that perspective. And that's stupid. Why do you think I feel like we have such a huge split in our country right now? Because we have two completely different groups of people, different life experiences, different political agendas and political mindsets, and they're not looking to see where they're coming from on the other side. It's like enemy. Enemy. And I know that it's really weird to get to that kind of line of discussion talking about restaurants, but this is a perfect example of that. You know? If you didn't have the experiences, the exposure, the opportunity of someone else, right? You wouldn't understand that something's better. And you might think that something that's actually inferior is good. And that's not to be hated on for. That's not fair, right? At the same time, those people who had the better experience shouldn't be shitting on you. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of crazy. Like, I kind of see both sides are kind of like in their own little bubble and don't really understand. Like, the people who've never had the better food don't understand that it's better. So, like, why would you hate on working class America for liking Red Lobster? Yeah, but you're kind of wrong. I mean, Red Lobster is bad. For someone who's had that perspective, I can tell you Red Lobster is bad food. It's not quality. It's not worth the money you're even paying. It's not healthy. It's not tasty compared to real authentic seafood. It's just not. It's factual. It's objective. Okay? But I'm not going to sit here and shit on you and say, oh, because you like Red Lobster, you're some kind of an infidel, inferior plebeian. That's stupid. What happened? You know? Not everyone has the authentic seafood. So, it's hard to really even have a side on this, because I don't think there is a side here. It's more of a understanding America kind of a deal. How the hell can you look at chain restaurants and understand America? I don't know, but it works. Like, this is why we have such disagreement in our country in 2022, and people can't even get in line with the same kind of topics or same kind of feeling. You know what I'm saying? Like, people literally hate each other over dumb shit because they're coming from different life perspectives and they don't even, like, overlap or jive. Yet we're all in the same country. It's pretty nuts to think of that way.
You better take a sip, you fucking sleazy asshole.
There you go. Now I pissed everyone off. Good. That's what I'm here for. I don't know if you guys do that. That's what I'm here for, to piss everybody off. So, if you like those chain restaurants, you hate me. And if you don't like those chain restaurants, you also hate me. That's what it's called, being in the middle and trying to have a kind of like balanced perspective in America. If you're not polarized one way or polarized the other way, you're the most hated person. I guess I'll have to take that bullet. You know? Seriously. I can't be on one side or the other. I can't. I'm not going to be ultra leftist, ultra right, ultra liberal, ultra Republican, ultra chained restaurant, ultra authentic. restaurant. I can't do it. You know, the older I get, the more I'm able to see these different perspectives, and I kind of understand where people are coming from. And if people would just look to the other side for 1 second to understand where someone's coming from, maybe we wouldn't hate each other so much. There you go. Honestly, there's nothing worse than when enlightened centrists try to claim the high ground like this. So, DB Croy, tell me, which side are you on? Because obviously you are on one. You see? The thing is, the older I get, the more I realize I don't see things as black and white. At all anymore. I really don't. When I hear anything like this, I want to hear both sides of an argument, and I want to try to get some kind of a valid opinion for myself. And the thing is, I can understand both sides. I think when it comes to the quality of the food, there's a definitive answer, but I don't think that there's a definitive answer on how you should feel about these restaurants and the food. So I'm not going to sit here and say one side's right and one side's wrong, right? But God forbid, you're a fence sitter. Like, you know what? Maybe it's time for people to stop being so fucking childish in their mentality. Because that's what it is. This whole black and white, right and wrong mentality is childish. It's so simplistic, and that's not how life is. How many times in science do we think we understand something, and then all of a sudden, oops, we were wrong. We discovered something different.
Excuse me, what?
If you were just black and white mentality, you would never discover the something different. You would have just settled on this is right, this is wrong, and never would we have any scientific breakthroughs whatsoever. So how can you be like that? I just don't understand that. What caused this deranged rant? Wow.
You gotta take a sip. You fucking sleazy asshole.
Anyway. All right. Let's do some shout outs. Now everyone hates me. There you go. Excellent. That was my goal today, to talk about chain restaurants and have everyone hate me. That's where I was going with this. Okay. So, let's do some shout outs. So, I'm going to eat this burger live with you today and share what I think about it. I'm sure people are going to be asking me questions about it.
What the hell is this?
Yo! Juicy, tangy, moist, gourmet level, timed release of flavors. Burger.
That's robust.
Juicy, tangy, moist burger. Getting all over my face.